Yes, well, first, thank you, Manuel, for hosting this space to BK, everybody engaged. Many people have to be involved for this event to happen. So I really appreciate all of your work and all of the people who are attending the session today, who are taking the time to learn about my new book. And as Manuel said, my accent is from Argentina. I am originally from Buenos Aires. I moved to Los Angeles, where I live 35 years ago, and I went back to school. I was a clinical psychologist and graduated from the University of Buenos Aires. And I went back to school and I got my master's in counseling and my master's and PhD in organizational psychology at Alliant University here in Los Angeles. And I started training leaders on leadership skills and coaching skills in 2000. So I have been doing this formally for 25 years. But even when I was doing my master's in 95, I started training leaders as part of my internship. So I may say that I have been training leaders worldwide for 30 years. And in 2000, I was hired by Personnel Decisions International, and now it's part of Conferry. And they sent me all over the world to train leaders on coaching skills and to provide coaching services. Originally in Latin America, because I am from Argentina, I spoke Spanish. There were not many consultants and coaches who spoke Spanish. So I started working in most Latin American countries, and then eventually they started sending me to Europe and Asia. So I had the opportunity to work in more than 50 countries. And in that process, I started working with clients like United Nations. I work with different UN agencies, like the UN Secretariat, UNHCR, the World Food Bank. Then I am currently working for UNICEF, and that's in the non, let's say in the government sector. And then I work for universities. Have been working with UCLA at USC, the University of Southern California, now for 12 years, providing coaching certifications. So part of my work is also to train professional coaches. So I have been doing that at USC, University of Southern California, for 12 years. We just finished cohort 12 this year. It's one cohort per year. And also through Personnel Decisions International, I work with big companies like Google and a list of companies. I was thinking about Google because I'm interviewing some of the clients that I work over the years for my podcast. So when I came up with my strategy for my book and I had to present a strategy to BK, how I will be presenting the book and how I will be reaching people with the book, part of that was to start a podcast. So I have been interviewing leaders worldwide on different leadership topics that are presented
Okay.
in the book. So I think that this is what gives me authority going to your question. All of these
So you're
years of
more
experience
than you're
training leaders. I am also the past president of the International Coaching Federation. Many of the books that I wrote in the past are related to coaching and coaching competencies. So in this book, what I am doing is I'm bringing them together. And I think that we can talk about that a little bit more about the content of the book later.
we are more than convinced, Damian, that you have the authority to speak about the subject. What will the participants today be able to take away to apply in their day-to-day professional lives after they hear you?
So my goal here today is to share about the book, what I wrote in the book. So I will share
Right.
with you some of the content, some of the ideas. So I hope that you will get a free copy of the book today so you can read it
Yeah.
later. And it will be great to hear your feedback and your reviews at Amazon. As part of this community, many of the people here today are BK authors, and we know how important is to get reviews from our colleagues and people who read the book. And so I will share some of the techniques and some of the strategies that I have in the book. And I hope that you can apply some of that in your work if you're a leader or if you have leadership positions, not necessarily management positions, because leadership is not only about managing people, it's also about facilitating, in being engaged in groups, in communities. So we have to show our leadership skills in many different areas, not only as managers.
Right. Thank you. Now, there are many, many books out there on leadership and coaching. I'm sure that you've read some of them. What makes your book different? And why
Well,
did you decide to write it?
this is this is the reason why I wrote the book is because I wanted to share my 25 years of experience as a trainer, training leaders and working with leaders worldwide. And I thought that some of my experiences and some of what I have learned over the years can be helpful and
Hmm.
contribute to the work of leaders. And then when I was thinking what angle I wanted to take, I decided to bring the framework from the International Coach Federation. Since I have been training coaches, since I have been very involved, I was in the global board for 6 years, and I had been having leadership position for 15. And so basically, there are 8 core competencies that all coaches need to demonstrate when they are coaching, and they need to demonstrate the skills to pass the exams and to get an accreditation. So I thought how these 8 core competencies can be applied to leaders. So leaders don't necessarily need to become professional coaches, but if they if they apply these competencies, they can bring their leadership to the next level. They can become more like a magnet for talent because when leaders are also coaches and people feel appreciated, valued, and they learn in their workplace, they want to work for these leaders. They respect them, they are loyal, they are engaged. And this is the premise of the book that when leaders engage their collaborators by spending time on their development, on their learning, when they have this coaching mindset, that means that you value and appreciate learning and look for opportunities for people to learn and grow, then people are more engaged, more
Okay. So
committed.
can you briefly describe uh, what are these 8 competencies? Very briefly.
Yes, because this is some of the takeaways you were asking me in the
Right.
past
Yeah.
question. Like the first competence is about ethical standards. Is all coaches need to follow ethical standards and leaders too. So what does it mean being an ethical leader? So here we talk about integrity, consistency between what we say and what we do, how we are role models in our behaviors, it's not what we are saying, but how we are behaving. So this whole chapter is about ethical leadership. The second one is about the coaching mindset. What does it mean, a coaching mindset? And it's about being aware of opportunities to have conversations that inspire others. So one of the questions for people who are here today is how effective are you at having conversations that inspire others, not telling them what to do. Okay, this is more consulting or telling. The whole premise in coaching is that you ask questions so people can think and come up with their own solutions. So the question that I have for you here today is how effective are you at asking questions and making people think? Because that's more difficult than telling people what to do. And there is a space, and sometimes people need to be told what to do, sometimes they need mentoring or guidance, that's fine. But many times, leaders in our life, we miss opportunities to have conversations where we listen and we ask questions and we make people think versus giving advice. So, this is a coaching mindset.
Okay.
Then the competence is about building relationships. And by the way, these competencies are not only for coaching and leadership, these are competencies for life. That's the reason why I got everybody in my family to go through coaching training because I wanted everyone to be able to apply these competencies, being effective at being building trust. That is the next competency. How effective are you at making people to trust you? What do you do? What do you say? How do you behave? How do you intentionally build trust? Then the fourth competence is about presence. How effective are you at connecting and being mindful, at paying attention to people and what they need, what they want, not treating people as objects for results, but people as human beings with needs, with dreams, how we appreciate them and how we make time for them to share that. So when we're building relationships, trust and presence are 2 key competencies. And then we have the communication competencies like listening, how effective we are at listening. And it doesn't matter how much experience you have teaching, or even for me, I have been training on listening skills and communication skills for 30 years. And I still need to remind myself to apply that because human beings, we are not wired to really listen. We're wired just to talk and to listen to ourselves versus listening to others. So how do we stop our inner conversation so we can be present to others? How do we stop our inner conversation so we are not waiting for people to finish talking so we can ask our next comment or question? So, and then we have the next competency is about creating awareness, is how effective we are about holding the space for people to think, how effective we are at asking questions, how effective are we at inviting people to look at places they are not paying attention to. What are their blind spots? What are our blind spots? Looking at places we cannot look by ourselves. And like and the metaphor that I like to use is going to the. I have a physical trainer that also I got him to go through coaching training. And I was talking before, I get all of my parents, my brothers, their wives, my nephew, my partner in life, five of my closest friends, my physical trainer, everybody to go through coaching training because I believe that these skills really make your life better because it enhance the quality of your relationships. So this is about when I go to it with my physical trainer at the gym. If I am by myself, I know what to do to work with the weights. But if I am with my trainer, I would do things I would not do by myself. So this is what coaching provides. It's an opportunity to do things we would not do by ourselves. And this is what leaders can provide to their collaborators. What questions, what places they may invite them to look at that we may not look for ourselves. And then the last competency is about learning and implementing the learnings, is how effective we are about doing different things as a result of this awareness and how we take action as a result of this learning process.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing. Uh, Damian, what do you think are the main challenges that leaders are facing today that this book will help them overcome or be successful at?
I think that leaders today are facing many challenges. Some are traditional challenges related to dealing with politics in the organizations, economics. Like right now, there are a lot of people, what I hear my clients are worried about the uncertainty. So one of the skills that leaders have been developing in the last few years is about dealing with ambiguity and uncertainty in a VUCA world, in this volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, is how do you navigate that? So skills around being flexible and dealing with ambiguity. People, what I hear is that leaders are also concerned about how technology is impacting their work. So for some coaches, for example, are worried about some AI programs that may replace them. And for leaders, they are wondering how they can be effective integrating technology and AI to their work to maximize efficiency, but to continue working with relationships. So a key element now is emotional intelligence. How emotional intelligence is developed so when they integrate technology, they don't forget the human side. So I do believe that these are some of the key challenges, and I think that in my book I talk about these 8 competencies, but I add 2 more chapters what I think are key to meet these challenges and needs. One is about team coaching. It's about how effective leaders are working with teams. But because at the end of the day, many times the teams are the ones who have to implement whatever strategies needs to are developed. So how effective leaders are coaching the team so the team can get results. And the last chapter is about foresight, and it's about looking for the future and how you prepare for the future. And it's interesting because when I presented the proposal for the book, one of the editors was wondering, do we really need to have that chapter? Because this is not really about coaching. And I said, this is key because you may have all of the coaching competencies, but if you don't have the foresight competencies, if you're not strategic, if you're not looking at the future, you are not going to be an effective leader. So I do believe that developing foresight skills and paying attention to the future and getting ready for the future, I believe is key for leaders today.
Okay. All right. And is there anything left out of your book that you, after you wrote it, you would have liked to have added to the book now that you've finished the work? What what comes next in your next editions that you
Uh,
haven't
it's it,
included
it,
in this one yet?
it's interesting because this book was evolving over the years. First, I wrote it in Spanish. So the book came out in Spanish last year. And then I translated and changed it for the English edition. But when I started with the Spanish version was during COVID, and COVID was finishing. So originally, this book was going to be called Post-COVID Leadership because COVID really revolutionized in many ways work. From working virtually, this is another area that leaders are concerned about how to work with hybrid teams when some people are not present and you have to work with that element. So then by the time that the book is going to come out, people say, no, 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 you cannot talk about post-COVID. People don't want to hear about the word COVID. People don't want to think about COVID, be reminded about COVID. So I took the COVID part, I re-edited it, and it was called in Spanish, Leadership for Current Times versus Post-COVID. And then for the English version, we kept editing and took a lot of other references about post-COVID. But I do believe that everything about technology and AI is changing so fast that sometimes it's difficult to keep track of everything that happened in the last few months that affect the workplace. And I do believe that leaders need to keep track of that, needs to be paying attention to what is the latest, robotics, everything that is related to technology, to AI. I do believe that is an area where I think I may write my next book, is how technology and AI is impacting the work and how people are getting ready for that. And I know most leaders are curious about, some people are threatened by that and scared about it. But I don't think that that is the best approach. I think the best approach is, okay, what we need to learn so we can be effective. And there is a concept of signals for the future. Is how do you look about some signs, what's happening right now already, that is giving us information about how things may be different in the future. So instead of denying that or not looking at that because it doesn't feel right, it's just paying a lot of attention to that so we can be better prepared.
Any signs that you're noticing now that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, I discovered recently the voice, ChatGPT voice, having conversations with ChatGPT. That was I was not as familiar till like 3 or 4 months ago, and I still find a lot of people who are not familiar. I love having conversations and sharing with them how I have these conversations. What sometimes are pretty amazing. So I do believe that the voice AI is going to be replacing some of the services that people and the work that people are doing because it sounds really as humans when you listen the tone of voice, the inflections. Um, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I have recently invested in a company that does amazing things with voice. Uh, and I had the chance to try a demo of an HP Hewlett Packard virtual assistant over the phone. And what this artificial intelligence does is even transforms the accents of people like you and me into uh, real American accents. So you can be answering questions or recording answers in different, types of accents that people are not familiar with, and makes them more understandable. And it sounds like you're talking to a real person. So what this is going to do in the future is scary on the one hand because there will be a lot of job posts that will be replaced, but on the other hand it's requiring people to develop new skills to deal with this.
Yeah.
uh,
Interesting that you
okay.
say that because when you were saying that, I was thinking, well, it should be a choice. So people may be able to choose because they may want to listen to your accent. You know, sometimes people don't like
Yeah.
accent, But who I am and how people think about me, probably without accent, will be different. But listen to this, something else that is new and different. Like this week, I was in two meetings where the issue of avatars came up, where you use this ChatGPT, for example, and you program one file, or I don't know how to call it exactly, like one avatar of you, where you put there all of your information. Like I can put there all of my books, all of the, I don't know, I wrote many chapters of books over the years, not only books, but chapters for other books, articles, some of my recordings, like I have 500 YouTube videos that, I can connect. And then there is some kind of software that replaces you. So if somebody want to ask me a question, instead of calling me, they can call or they can use my ChatGPT under Damian Goldvarg avatar, and with all of my information, it will answer the question.
Interesting, interesting. Uh,
So some coaches are
we,
doing that. Some coaches are starting doing that to offer that as a service to the
uh-huh.
client. So you have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have access to me through this system.
Okay. Well, thanks for answering these first questions. I'm going to ask Jeremy now from BK to share the screen with the two QR codes where people can get their free copies of the electronic version of your book, and also the QR code for them to order the paper book. Here they are. So we are going to be leaving these QR codes here for a minute to let you all participants get your free ebook copy with the QR code on the left. And if you're like myself, who likes the paper versions and like to write notes and highlight things on paper, you can buy your paperback with the QR code on your right. And shortly, we are going to start pulling the questions from the audience. I just don't see any so far on the chat.
There's a chat. There's a question. Um, could you share a specific story of a leader who embraced the coaching skills in your book and how it impacted them and their team?
Oh yeah, I see that there.
Yeah, there are different. What I did is I interview several of my clients and they share their stories. And I am also now using my podcast to interview them. So I want to invite people also to look at the podcast it's called the same that the book, Lead with the Coaching Mindset. And I interview them and they all share their stories. And in the book, there are many stories. And I remember one, for example, I'm thinking about there are different examples. But one of the examples that I share in the book is about a leader who had some challenges in really spending time, for example, in working with the high performance members. He was paying attention to people who were not performers. So I think that this is something that I see a lot in organizations where leaders sometimes, when they're managing, they spend more time and energy in people who are not performing versus people who are performers. And sometimes the performers also need attention and also need to be challenged and be invited to have more interesting or challenging assignments. And in this case, the leader lost that person in that team because was not paying attention to somebody who was effective. Another example about teams and teams effectiveness that I share is a colleague that really spent time on learning what were the suggestions from the people. So many times I see that in coaching, that leaders come to me and they say, oh, I don't know what to do. And in coaching, they realize that their team have the answer. So many times leaders forget or they are not paying attention how people around them may support them in coming up with the best solutions. But it seems pretty obvious, but it's not, because as we were saying before, many times leaders have a lot on their plate. There is a lot going on, a lot of stress, and they cannot stop to be present and to realize that the answer to some of the challenges is around them. Just needs to bring people together. So when they were able to bring the team to problem solve and get the team to come up with a best solution, not only the solution was better than what he was going to do, but also the participants were more committed to the solution, because when you come up with a solution, you are more engaged and more committed than when you just are told what to do. A couple
Okay.
of examples.
We have two other questions here. One is, do you see your approach changing for use in the remote workplace?
Yeah, and this is interesting because there was an article for Harvard Business Review a couple of months ago that talked about loneliness at work and how people may appreciate working from home. And it's different for everyone. Some people love it and some people don't. It depends on your conditions. Sometimes people feel that at work they can be more productive than going to an office, and some people feel the contrary. So it depends on the person and the situation. And what research is showing is that what is better is not that the organization is deciding for people, but giving people the opportunity to choose if it's possible. So versus making it mandatory, that is, they had to go to the office twice a week or three times a week, so whatever arrangement. Sometimes that is required, but when possible, the best approach is getting people to choose what works better for them. But loneliness is really an issue about, and the loneliness may be not only virtual. Sometimes the loneliness is also experienced in being present, because the lack of connection, because of technology, or leaders are not paying enough attention to bring people together to support each other. So I do believe that paying attention to what people need, and see that it's different for everybody, and also paying attention to people who are virtual and in person to connect. So I do believe that connection is what may be missing, and they can be in the same office and still not be connected. So I
Right.
do believe that these new
But
models and these new challenges is.
for people who choose to work remotely and need to be coached, is there anything out of those eight core competencies that you think is more important, should be emphasized, or should be more used? Is there anything that needs to be added to those competencies to coach people who are working remotely?
I think these competencies apply to them. There is an area that we didn't talk yet that is about coaching a competency and differences about people from different cultures. And cultural competency, it means not only ethnic and countries or race, but that includes also sexual orientation, gender, age, what people are most of the time think about differences, but also neurodiversity. These days are people more aware of that, or different level of ability. And it's about paying attention, it's about being present to people's needs. And also it's about building trust, because when you build trust and people are able to talk and share what they need, it's easier to connect. So the two key competencies for connecting with people, if we're talking about connection, are building trust and being present. And you cannot do that without listening. So all competencies are related to each other. But I do believe when you work in hybrid environments, and this is related to hiring practices. And there is, if people are interested in this, there is, I talk about that in my book and also in one of the podcasts about how do you set up relationship for success. So when you are having new team members who are going to be working from home and are not going to be meeting in person, how do you set up this relationship for success? And part of that is the hiring process and onboarding process, where you explore what are the needs of the people working for you, and also you express what are your needs. So you spend time in clarifying expectations. And many times people give that for granted and don't spend time on that. And this is one of the foundation for trust is listening and paying attention what are people need so you can provide to the extent that you can. Sometimes you can't, but when you can, you provide some of the spaces and opportunities for people to succeed based on what they need. Sometimes people need to be let alone. Sometimes people need to have ongoing conversation, get a lot of feedback. So it's different for every person. So I do believe that Manuel going to the hybrid work environment is that you need to pay attention by being present, by building trust, and by listening what people need and work from there.
Okay. Now there is another. You've touched on the subject of cultural differences. There is a very specific question here coming from one of the participants. If you feel a difference, a significant difference when you're coaching Americans versus coaching Latin Americans or Europeans or Asians, is there? This is a
Yeah,
question that I have received myself
yeah,
several times in my work. Do you see a difference? And if so, what are they? Or what are the similarities?
yeah.
Things that apply to all.
Well, I think there are some similarities that we all, as human beings, need to belong, want to be respected, want to be valued, want to be seen as human beings and not as objects. So I think that that's some of the universals, let's say. But then each culture has their own values and their own beliefs and rituals and ways of being. But what is tricky is that you need to know what they are. So you need to know there are differences between German culture and Spaniard culture in Europe, for example. But within America, it's very different New York than Los Angeles, or the Midwest than the Southern. So there are differences in culture, differences in ways of values, what is important, and beliefs, rituals. But what is very interesting, though, is that we need to know generalities, but we need to be careful because every person falls in a different range and a different curve for this culture. So, for example, I have a friend who is Chinese Canadian and she lives in Canada, but she does not relate to anything Chinese. On the contrary, she rebelled to everything that she learned from her family culture. So she doesn't want to be seen or considered like a Chinese woman because even though that's her roots and she appreciates that, she still do not follow what may be some general stereotype of Chinese women. So can you hear that? So the problem is that we need to know about cultures, but at the same time we cannot stereotype or put a label in somebody because they belong to that culture because every person is unique. So that is the balance between knowing about the culture but understanding that this person may or may not follow guidelines for the culture. So, for example, I am Argentinian, and most Argentinian men love, and you're Brazilian, so you can understand that, love football, soccer. Soccer, like in the culture, is very part of the culture. So it's expected that most Argentinian men may love soccer and may know about soccer. And I am not the case. I never care very much about soccer, so I don't follow that stereotype. So if somebody wants to relate to me and start talking about soccer as a way to connect because they think that I am Argentinian and I may connect in that way, it will not work out. So that's the reason why we cannot give for granted that the person that we have in front of us follow any guidelines or have any stereotype that we may have about the culture. So that's the reason why the key element and the key strategy for coaches and leaders is to be curious.
Mm,
So the best way to deal with diversity and differences is being cultural and not give anything for granted and being interested versus being interesting. So I say be interested in other people's values, what is important to them, what they appreciate. Don't give anything for granted and connect. So when you're curious and you ask questions and you get to know people, then you can see in which ways you are similar and in which ways we are different. And I think in the way we are similar, we connect. And in the way we are different are opportunities for learning.
okay. Yeah. Good
And by the way,
advice.
there are many books in BK. I know BK is very committed to diversity issues. And there are many books that I have seen and read over the years where this is very well explored and presented. And I appreciate that
So think
value
less
as an
about
organization.
country cultures and pay more attention to the individuals, and you will be a good coach no matter in which time zone you are. I think that's the key message here that you're giving.
That's a
Right?
great summary. Great summary.
Okay. Uh, so the person who asked the question is thanking you for the great answer. Any other questions from those participating today? Let's see. I don't see any other questions coming, but we probably have time to answer one more. In the meantime, I'm going to ask Jeremy to put those QR codes again for people who did not have the chance to scan them. One is to get your free electronic copy, and the other one is for you to buy the paper copy if you want to. So here they come.
And we just had another question come in through the chat.
That's a very good question. Okay, a question that just came in. If you have any tips for coaching team members who do not want to be coached?
Not everybody's coachable.
What if my initial approach is, I don't need this, thank you very much, don't want it? What would you do? What would be your approach?
Yeah. Well, the strategy that I was saying before about being curious is the number one, because when people are telling you, I don't care, I don't want it, I don't need it, you wonder, I am curious to see what is underlying. So one of the things, Manuel, that I teach when I train coaches and leaders is say that when you are coaching, you're always thinking about where you are and where you want to be. So what is the gap between present and desired future? And then, so let's say you see like horizontally, and then vertically, you see what is in the surface and what is underlying. So every time that you're having coaching conversations, you are looking at where people are and where they want to be, and what is in the surface and what is underlying. So when somebody is telling me I don't need coaching, like I have heard in coaching, like I have been a pioneer of coaching supervision worldwide, training supervisors so they can provide that service to coaches. And many times coaches say, I don't need supervision. Something similar is many times that is coming because they don't understand what is it. So many times when people say, I don't want coaching, I don't want to be told what to do, or sometimes there is a misunderstanding of what it is and how they are going to benefit from that. But many times what is underlying, if you go from the surface to the depth, when people are telling you that as a leader, maybe also because they don't trust you. So I'm wondering if there is something that you need to do to build trust first, because if there is no trust, trust is the foundation of a relationship. If somebody is not trusting their boss or their leader, they may not want to be coached because they don't feel that the leader or boss has the best interest in mind, is trying to manipulate them. So when people see coaching as a way of manipulation versus as a way of growth and learning and development, people are resistant. So many times the resistance is coming up from the place of lack of trust, lack of understanding what really is and how it works. And I sometimes wonder what is the fear. When somebody is resistant, I always wonder what they're afraid of. And maybe they may be afraid of seen as incompetent or uh, who knows. But curiosity helps, is being curious, see what is underlying. When we have all of these behaviors that don't make sense to us, that can be resistant to change or resistant to coaching or resistant to anything from anybody. Many times, what is underlying is fear. So, being curious about what can be underlying may help to go there.
Right. Now, I was just thinking as I listened to you, if as a leader who feels the need to coach someone, you can just remove the label and apply the principles. They don't need to know that they're being coached if you're a good leader who applies all of these competencies of listening, creating connections, etc. Right?
Yeah, you don't need to put the label. But also coaching sometimes is misunderstood. Is misunderstood as, okay, something is wrong, I need to be fixed, so I'm going to coach you.
Yeah.
Versus thinking coaching is an opportunity to learn and grow and develop. So great leaders work with coaches, so can help them, not you as a leader coaching others, but also as a leader getting coaching. So you can look at your own blind spot. Like I work with my own coach, I work with my own supervisor. Looking, even though I have been doing this for many years, I am a master coach. There are always places where we can look that we are not paying attention to.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Damian, for your time. Looks like you have some very interesting content to share in your book. Thank everybody. Thank you, everybody, for participating. We are reaching the end of our webinar today. And before we do, in this last minute, Damian, any specific special message that you have for those of us who attended before we disconnect?
I want to thank everybody for being here, for taking the time to learn about my book. I hope that this book really inspire leaders so they can create work environments and workplaces where there is more well-being, healthy spaces for people to grow, learn, and develop. And I think when we have organizations like that, we have a better society, a better world. So at the end, this is what we all want. We want to live in a place where we can um, be satisfied, meet our needs, grow, learn, develop, and contribute and make a difference.
Yes. Thank you, Damian. Good
Thank
luck
you.
with your book, and thanks for sharing your insights. And you
Thank you,
all have
Damian.
a good rest of your day. Thanks for participating in this Fresh Ink event from BK.